I'm Yuri.
I'm Jacob.
And we're going for a virtual drive. 2020 Land Rover Defender.
You guys really liked our last Genesis G80 video that we did this way. Not that we have a choice, but we're definitely going to continue doing it. And now I gave myself a haircut. That's my update for the stay home this week.
And fun thing about this car is we were actually supposed to drive it before this whole worldwide thing went down. So let's get into it. What do you want to start with?
Well, we should obviously start with the horsepower and torque.
Horsepower and torque.
There's two engine options, a 3-liter inline-six turbo with a mild hybrid system putting out 395 horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque. There's also a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo with 296 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque.
So what is a Defender and why do people like it so much? Because people are very excited about this.
Yeah, the Defender has a really long history. It wasn't always called a Defender, but everyone's really excited that it's back.
Yeah, so it was the same version from 1990 to 2016.
Yeah, so they were building a car that looked like it was pretty much straight from the 70s or 80s up until a couple years ago.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy because the interior was slightly modernized in the older one, but it still had like one of those CD decks that you could pop out the face so people couldn't steal it and stuff.
So now that the Defender's back, there's two versions of it, the 90 and the 110. So the 90 is a 2-door and the 110 is a 4-door.
And in all the press material, they were saying this is a go anywhere, do anything kind of vehicle. And I guess if you go anywhere and do anything, it needs to be reliable. Do you think this thing's going to be reliable?
Yeah, so we can't really talk about the actual Defender reliability, but we can talk about JLR reliability. I've actually owned a Range Rover for 26 hours. I'm not going to tell you the whole story now. I'll save that for like VinWiki or something like that. But I don't know if I'd trust it out in the wilderness.
Yeah, I guess the true test will be when we put it in reverse, does the reverse camera turn on right away or does it take 30 seconds again?
But Land Rover is definitely telling you that you need to be a rock climber or a surfer or something, and you would definitely trust this thing according to the press footage.
Yeah, it's pretty much doing the most extreme stuff. My favorite part was in the 007 footage, how they have it do a total flip and drive away. And then they've got like, I guess, fake chatter on the radio. They're like, that's great, let's do it again, which is obviously someone just voicing over an accident. And they're like, oh, it kept driving, thank God.
That was definitely one of the best commercials I've ever seen. And I know it was a commercial for a movie, but it was incredible. And before we get in depth on the Defender, I just want to give Jaguar Land Rover a shout out for supplying their vehicles to the Red Cross during this pandemic.
Yeah, and they even have a Red Cross version, which is pretty cool because they've been using it for a long time.
Yeah, they've had commercial versions of the Defender, so it's cool that they're continuing that on.
And they also mentioned in the media footage that this car was about quality and residual value, which I'm very curious about.
I think it'll actually work because these rugged SUVs are really holding their value, and we should probably address that this is not a body-on-frame SUV because someone's going to say it in the comments.
So who is this car for?
Like we showed you earlier, it's definitely for rock climbers and surfers and extreme people, but it's also for regular people because there's 4 different versions.
Okay, so starting with the most off-road version, what are they called and what do they look like?
There's the Explorer, the Adventure, the Country, and the Urban.
So Urban should be the biggest city slicker one, right?
Yeah, that one's definitely got the biggest wheels and the less stuff attached to the outside. It just looks the cleanest.
And then Urban and Adventure are both the models with less plastic cladding on the fenders, where Adventure and Country have full plastic cladding on the fenders.
And then Explorer is kind of your most extreme version because it comes with a snorkel, but it's not an actual water snorkel, it's a desert air intake snorkel, so it doesn't actually increase your wading depth.
And then you can also get a roof rack on the Adventure, and then on 2 of them you've got the side exterior mount as well.
And on top of the actual appearance stuff, there's a little bit of mechanical differences between them as well. And you can actually option pretty much everything you want within the accessories anyways.
But there's one accessory that I had trouble optioning unless you have the most base model, and that would be the white steel wheels.
It's really cool that they have steel wheels, but it's weird that you can't option it on every single trim.
Yeah, I've noticed that you need to have it on like the lowest, worst headlights. You can't get the cool outer ring on the headlight to get the white steel wheels. Pretty much just the basest models.
So we're kind of jumping all over the place, but let's focus on the looks first.
Overall, do you like the way it looks?
Yeah, it looks like a modernized Defender.
It looks really weird. It almost looks like anime cartoonish a little bit, but I think it looks really awesome, and it especially looked a lot better in person when we saw it at the Toronto Auto Show.
So obviously there's 2 different versions, the 90 and the 110. I prefer the 90, which is the 2-door.
Well, apparently, Car and Driver posted an article saying there may be an 80 version coming in 2022, whatever that is. So maybe there's 3 versions, but right now, between the 90, the 2-door, the 110, the 4-door, I obviously like the 90 more, even though I think the 4-door looks better overall.
Yeah, it's just got this kind of cartoonish FJ style to it. I really like the 90.
When you buy an SUV, you kind of want like the dumbest looking SUV possible. That's probably why I like my Element so much. I like the convertible Murano. I like Doug's convertible G-Wagen.
And not that my Raptor's an SUV, but it's definitely in the dumbest orange on orange spec with the graphics.
Do you like the headlights or do you hate the headlights?
I love the headlights. They look so clean.
Yeah, the DRL looks really cool. It would suck to get it without that because I feel like that's the whole image of the front.
Yeah, you really lose out on the nostalgia that they're trying to go for if you don't get the half round circles.
And what do you think of the front end and the grille? Because there are a few different ways you can change the color. You can have it like body matched, or you can have like the dark cladding stuff on the front.
It's really flat from the front, and it gives it a way better approach angle because of that.
Yeah, it's very flat at the front and back, so I guess we should talk about the side view now.
Yeah, what does it remind you of from the side? Perhaps a Honda Element?
Yeah, it reminds me of a Honda Element a lot. Like I swear, if I just put the DRLs into my Honda Element, it would look exactly the same.
It'd look pretty close, that's for sure. But it does look really cool. It's got that boxy profile. I like it a lot.
It definitely looks like a boxier, old schoolier looking Range Rover, Land Rover.
Old schoolier. And looking at it from the side really shows the cool accessories you can get, like the ladder, the storage stuff.
Yeah, it definitely looks pretty cool from the side, very boxy. Do you like with fender flares or without fender flares?
I definitely like the bigger fender flares, but it sucks that you can't just option the fender flares. You have to get the package that you want. So you can't get the Adventure with the bigger fender flares because that's on the Explorer.
Yeah, but I think it's pretty cool how they gave both options because I'm sure people who just drive it around the city don't want those rugged fender flares at all.
And then if we look up top, we have a slit in the roof called the Alpine light. So it's a throwback to older Defenders.
And then on the side, we also have this cool color matched body panel on the back window, which I think is a really interesting take. Nothing else really has anything like it.
And so let's talk about these wheels now. There's so many different wheel options from I think 18 inch to 22 inch, and you can get steelies like we mentioned earlier, but it just depends on the package that you get. I really like the steel wheels. They look so cool.
Yeah, the steel wheels are definitely the coolest. I think if I had to spec my own out, I would get like a higher trim with the signature DRL headlights. And then I would buy those wheels from Land Rover just so I could put them on so they're the exact Land Rover steelies.
And depending on which trim you get Continental cross-contact LX Sport tires.
And lastly on the side, the bottom trim panel doesn't go all the way to the bottom no matter which version you get. But now let's move to the very back.
The back is super flat. It's the weirdest looking from the side where it wraps around to the back, but the taillights look really cool for being super flat as well.
Yeah, it's definitely a different style of taillight than anyone else has been using. It looks like very, very future. What do you think of the exposed tire on the back?
I think it's super cool, but you can get it covered depending on the trim that you get.
Yeah, the Defender cover on the back looks really good, especially in white. And I really like the black line that goes through the taillights all the way up and around and back down through the taillights.
And because the back end is so flat, you do get a 40-degree departure angle, so that also helps with your off-roading.
And then at the back, if you get the top roof mount, you can get a ladder as well. And then you can also get optional mud flaps. Would you get it with or without mud flaps? Because I would go with mud flaps.
I would definitely go without. And there are 3 different roof options: a metal roof, a glass roof that opens, and a cloth fabric roof, which you can only get on the 90.
So I guess that's pretty much it with the looks. I guess what we should do next is spec out our version so everyone can vote if you want Team Yuri spec or Team Jacob spec in the comments below.
So now let's get into the tech stuff. There are 2 engine options like I mentioned earlier, one of them being a mild hybrid. The 48 volt mild hybrid has an electric supercharger that helps fill in torque before the turbo spools up, which is pretty awesome. But they both have an 8-speed auto as the only transmission option.
The Range Rover Evoque that we drove recently, that motor is the same one that's in the base model.
Yeah, so the P300 seems to be the exact same engine because it has the same horsepower and torque, and we really like that engine as a base engine.
And then there's no manual transmission anymore, which I guess kind of makes sense because it's a future car that looks like a Pokemon.
I guess if you think it looks like a Pokemon.
Definitely looks like a Pokemon. Are you kidding me?
I don't know anything about Pokemon.
Just like you've never seen 50 Shades of Grey, right?
Yeah, it is obviously all-wheel drive with low-range gearing. It can send up to 100% of the torque to the front or rear axle, and then it also has an active differential that can vary the torque between the left and right wheels, so it could put power exactly to the wheel that it needs.
And for off-roading stuff, it does have air ride.
Yeah, so weirdly enough, air suspension comes stock from the factory on the base model, and I couldn't find a way to delete that, but I saw in their specifications that I think globally you can get coil springs.
So how does all this stuff help it for off-road?
Well, if you raise the air suspension to its maximum height, your water wading depth is 90 centimeters, so you can almost go a full meter underwater. But the way that the sensors work is a little weird because you can't drive through flowing water. It has to be like through a pond, so you can't really drive through a river and know exactly the height that you're at because it shows you in the infotainment, which we'll get to a bit later.
Wading through water is something that I don't want to do on my own. I kind of want someone to go through it first and just be like, you can do this. This is our car, everything is fine. I'm too scared to do that stuff.
There's also a bunch of accessories that can help you off-road. I just want to talk about the optional winch right now. You can get a remote control to winch yourself from outside of your own car.
And then I also read somewhere that it has hill launch assist.
So you guys know that we love launch control, but this is totally different. All this does is prevent you from rolling back when you're on a steep incline.
So I assume this is going to have a whole bunch of different off-road specific drive modes like every other Land Rover, Range Rover we've driven.
Yeah, it's obviously got hill descent control. It's also got all-terrain progress control. So basically it can control all of the inputs minus the steering. And then we also have 6 different terrain response modes. So grass, gravel, snow, mud, sand, rock crawling, you name it, this has it. So like we're used to in most other SUVs, this has a bunch of different modes.
And the best mode it has is an auto mode where it just detects where you are and solves everything for you.
Yeah, but that's actually part of an accessory package. So if you don't get that particular package, you have to decide which mode you're in.
I feel like anybody who specs this out is going to regret something because there's so many different options.
So that's actually all the off-roady stuff without us being able to drive it. So now let's talk about the interior and get into more confusing specs, because you can even get a jump seat in the first row.
So you can only get a 5 or 6 seater in the 90 version, which is the 2-door, but you can get up to a 7-seater in the 4-door version.
Yeah, but if you get the 7-seater version, you can't actually spec the jump seat for the front.
Which kind of makes sense, like you gotta limit stuff somewhere, but the jump seat looks kind of ugly. But when it folds all the way down, it's got cup holders in the back, so it is still kind of useful.
And then you can also option a fridge instead of that jump seat as well.
Yeah, that would be the version where you have a normal center console.
And then there's finally a version where you can just delete everything and pretty much just walk through the middle.
Okay, and then all the seats fold flat. It's not like a full height like the Honda Element where you can just take the seats right out, but it does look like there's a ton of room, and the floors are rubber.
Yeah, just like your Honda Element, so theoretically you could just hose this thing down. I don't know if you'd want to be hosing down a really expensive Land Rover.
Yeah, hosing stuff down just leaves pools of water. All those commercials were lies. And in the 4-door version, it said that there was 1,305 liters in the front and 1,075 liters in the back of space, so let's convert that to the box test.
Box test!
Thanks, Patreon members. This is the best we can do right now.
And there's even an option that you can take a backpack and use it as a center console and then take that backpack with you.
So what part of the interior do you want to get to next?
Let's get to all the color options because there's a bunch of nice ones. I personally like the greenish kind of tan color.
I really like the color options of the exposed structural frames on the dash.
Overall, it looks pretty rugged. Like, it makes sense that it's in this type of SUV.
And it's cool that you can get nice wooden materials in there as well. It's not just cool colors.
Yeah, you'd probably want that in the urban spec.
And how about the visor test?
We don't actually know.
I'm messaging the guy on the Defender website right now, chatting to one of the customer service representatives. We'll find out if he actually does or not. All right, Dylan at customer service just got back to me. He says he could not find the information.
Damn it, Dylan. So now let's talk about this infotainment. Apparently they used a higher speed processor for the infotainment and for the gauges, so they are promising no lag, and I am excited to see what that actually means in real life.
Yeah, I kind of doubt that. There's probably still going to be lag, but I'm willing to take a look at it. But it does look slightly reskinned, even the gauges and the infotainment, so it should be fun.
And I couldn't find anything on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto being standard, but we have seen Apple CarPlay and Android Auto pretty much on every new JLR car, so I assume this will have it.
And this does have wireless charging, but I don't know about any JLR cars having wireless Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, so the wireless charging is still going to be kind of useless.
And so now let's talk about the water wading depth sensors that it shows you in the infotainment. So it actually has sensors in the mirrors to show you on the infotainment exactly how deep the water is.
And another cool off-roady infotainment thing is that we've got that ground view that we had in the Evoque.
Yeah, we tested it on some boxes on the road, but it definitely makes a difference off-road, at least according to the press footage. And now it even has a 360 camera, and you can actually move it around just like BMWs and Audis.
Couple more fun tech things. This does have a camera in the rear view mirror, so you can see behind yourself when there's something blocking the back. And then it also has blind spot monitoring, adaptive cruise. I'm not sure how good the lane keep is, but it has auto park as well, which is really good because I remember the first Evoque we drove, that was the first car that I felt had a really good auto park system. And then the last really cool piece of tech that I haven't seen in anything else, it has these dimming headlights that only cut out the certain section where an oncoming car is. So it's always changing. It doesn't just kill the headlights in total.
Yeah, a lot of new luxury cars are starting to get that because they're using LED headlights so you can turn off all the individual LEDs rather than the whole LED.
And I think that's pretty much it. That's all I have to talk about this Land Rover Defender without actually driving it. Let's get to the price.
So in Canada, it starts at $65,300, which is $49,900 US dollars, which is for the Defender 110, not the 90. The 90 is actually more expensive at $76,700, which is $65,100 US.
And that's because it only starts with a better motor.
That's right. So as soon as you option that better engine in the 110 becomes more expensive.
So I guess this also kind of competes with the G-Wagen, right?
Yeah, kind of does for off-road prowess, I would say.
And then I guess this also competes with a Jeep Wrangler that's fully loaded.
Yeah, this would actually be around the same price as a Wrangler, which is pretty crazy.
And I guess people who had the option of buying a 2016 Land Rover Defender, this kind of competes with a used one of those as well, even though they're leaps and bounds apart.
Yeah, I've never driven one of those, and we never had that option in Canada, so I have no idea what that thing's like.
So after digging into all this stuff, how excited are you to actually drive it one of these days?
Oh, I'm super excited. All the off-road footage looks pretty intense, so I would love to try that. Maybe go to like Namibia.
Yeah, I'm really hoping they let me roll one like the 007 clip. What do you guys think of the Land Rover Defender? How did you like this review?
And let us know what other cars you guys want us to cover, because the options are endless because we're stuck at home.
And I guess in the meantime, you can watch the competitor, which is the G-Wagen.
Click here.
Or the Rubicon.
Or the Rubicon. Just click here somewhere.